Today on r/AskReddit, what is the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced while home alone? Somebody tried to break into the house while I was by myself. The whole place was quiet and dark at nighttime. I walked past the front door to go upstairs for bed, and the handle suddenly started jerking around like the Hulk was trying to get in. Then whoever it was started to either kick or shoulder the door, and it was making the whole frame jiggle. I completely froze and my mind went blank. Just standing there like an idiot and staring. My dog bolted down the stairs like it was her time to shine. Scrambled on the tile and let loose the most vicious barks I've ever heard. Whoever it was left, she was a very good girl. I miss her. When I was young, I came home from a party in the middle of the night. When my dad were out of town, I started making a midnight quesadilla when I heard someone cough in the basement. I yelled and ran outside, and they took off through the backyard. Come to find out, my dad's ex-GF's daughter stole her key to our house and came to rob us. She was busted a couple years later doing this to her still. How were the midnight quesadillas? When I heard someone cough in the basement. If this had happened in 2020, this would be the most scary part of your story. I have been pretty fortunate based on these comments, but I was home alone one night while my wife and son were visiting my mill. I walked back to our bedroom to see someone rummaging through my son's room on the video baby monitor. Immediately grabbed my firearm and yelled to the other side of the house, I am armed. Come out slowly. Over and over while slowly making my way back to his room. Got there, flipped on the light and nothing. Searched the whole house, pumped full of adrenaline. Finally satisfied I was alone, I went back to my room and the guy was back in the room. I took a closer look and I'm ashamed to say I was looking at myself. The camera is a live feed on our Wi-Fi and it was steaming on a huge delay. I have never known it to do that and it has not done it since. TL. Doctor went looking for myself and came back empty-handed. That's the best TL doctor I've ever seen. This is a funny one. That would definitely be a heart dropped seeing the guy back in the room after you 100% cleared your house. I seriously would have thought it was a ghost. And I don't even believe in ghosts. Not exactly alone, but I was home with my newborn son and someone knocked on the front door. I was expecting my mother, but she usually comes in through the garage. I thought it was strange, but yelled come in. Because why wouldn't I? Then this cracked out old woman comes stumbling through the door and asks me for a ride to the nearest gas station. I told her I didn't have a car seat for my son, so I couldn't go anywhere. So she starts screaming that's just inappropriate. And doesn't stop, even when I'm telling her she needs to leave, or I'll call the cops. After a minute or so, my mother actually pulls in the driveway. The crackhead sees the car and bolts back out the door. And I never see her again. That night my truck got broken into. Can't for sure say it was the same woman, but I have her description to the cops anyway. That seems a little too suspicious to be a coincidence. When I was about 10 years old, someone kept ringing the doorbell for like 10 minutes. Was ducking creepy. Some of those church people can be very persistent. Got a 5-channel sound system. Nothing too fancy, but the best it ever had. Watched an action film and heard a creaking door to my left in the distance. I had to clear my home as I thought there was an intruder. Nope. Just better stereo sound. Edit. It's a 5.1 system. The two behind me cause all the problems. They are oriented towards the outside of my house. Sorry for any confusion in my lack of terminology. I was asleep at home alone. When I turned over in bed, I casually opened my eyes a little whilst turning, and they were shut again just as quickly. In that split second, I could have sworn I had seen a man stood at the bottom of my bed. I laid still, awake with my eyes closed, trying not to act like I was awake, and trying to listen for any sound in the room of someone breathing or moving. Couldn't hear anything. I was too scared to open my eyes and look. Consoled myself that there wasn't any way someone could have gotten in without me hearing a window smash, and fell back asleep. When I got up in the morning though the front door was open, They didn't take anything and left no signs of being there. Was still very creepy though. I lit 2 long taper candles for some ambience while I was playing guitar late at night. I was facing the other direction looking out the window while playing, and shortly later turned around and went back towards the candles and discovered one of them was completely gone. The stand was still there, but no melted wax. Just a bare candle holder, and the other one was still lit and no shorter than it was when I lit them. It was almost 3 AM and I was so terrified that I got in my car and left and drove to my dad's house. Sleep paralysis. Waking up from a nightmare soaked in sweat, with a weight on my chest and completely unable to move. Sometimes I see shadowy shapes or feel there's someone watching. You sort of get used to it. I had the police knock one day while I was alone. The cop had a guy in the back of his car who said we were holding his friend captive. I showed the cop my ID and explained that it was just me and my husband. He wasn't home, but they could look if they wanted to, and he said no, that was okay, and then asked questions about my neighbors. I wonder why they didn't want to look if the guy said his friend was being held captive. Maybe it was an incredible story. When I was like 14, I was home alone one night around 10 PM, stood in my kitchen making some cereal. It's dark outside, and then all of a sudden the loudest sound. Some drunk woman literally launched a hammer through my kitchen window. Was so loud and glass was everywhere. I followed her down the street whilst calling the police. Pretty strange. Hippity hoppity, I'ma destroy your property. My BF worked away from home a lot, and I always struggled to sleep on the first night he was away. On this occasion I was woken by the sound of a man shouting and then someone banging on wood or a front door. I jumped up and looked out my bedroom window. Just in time to see a man dressed all in black walking through our garden towards the house. I ran to the front of the house to look out of the front window and make sure he kept going. He did. But he met up with another man dressed in black walking towards my house. I was terrified and called the police. They arrived in a matter of minutes and checked out the back garden, but they were gone. Turned out a neighbor had caught them both trying to steal his car, and one had escaped through the gardens while the other had run through the roads, and they had met up outside my house. I didn't sleep at all that night, and my brother came to stay the next night. I'm so glad I live in an apartment now. Much more security. I have kinda similar story. I was maybe 9 years old by myself at home. My grandmother had chickens. They usually ran around outside but always stayed in our yard. So I started hearing loud noises coming from them outside. The rooster was louder than normal and lots of wing clapping. So I look outside and see 2 men I've never seen before chasing the chickens. They were trying to steal them. It was more funny to me than scary. They eventually caught a couple and took them. This was in my home country Ukraine, and we didn't have cell phones or even landlines. So I couldn't do anything but wait for my grandmother to come home. The cleaning lady tried to commit suicide in our bathroom. She died 4 days later. Umph. I can't be the only one wondering why she chose your bathroom. I get auditory hallucinations when I'm tired. That's brought on by my anxiety. The one that caused the worst anxiety attack I'd had in months was just as I was drifting off to sleep, a guy yelled "Hey" right into my ear, and I launched myself out of bed before realizing what had happened. This happens to me a lot, especially when I'm up late producing music. With my headphones on and my track playing, I can occasionally hear what I believe to be voices. It's very odd. Sometimes it sounds like a television in the distance. But I'll always turn all electronics off when in producing to avoid static and miscellaneous feedback. So this is interesting to read. It does happen sometimes when I'm heading to bed too. I wonder if I get them too. A few years ago I was home alone in my basement playing video games when I hear the door that connects my kitchen to the garage creak open and slam shut. But I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open. Then I heard heavy footsteps of someone wearing boots walk the length of my kitchen directly above me. I originally thought, oh, my brother must have forgotten something. as he had left about 5 minutes before that for work, so I was about to yell up to him to make fun of him, but something in the back of my mind was telling me, hold on. Something's not right here. So I muted my TV to both hear better and to stay quiet. Then I heard the footsteps turn around and walk back to the door. And again I hear it creak open and slam shut. But again I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open or close. So I slowly walk upstairs thinking maybe my brother just forgot to close the garage door. I slowly open the door to my garage and see that the garage door has been closed the entire time. The only two explanations I can come up with are either something paranormal happened or someone broke into my house, walked through my kitchen, and left without taking anything, while also not letting me hear them open my garage door. In my opinion, both are equally terrifying to me. Option C. Someone was hiding out in your garage. I was 13 and my dad was at work and my little sister then 8 was at my grand's house. My dad and my older sister then 16 had recently stolen back her dog, the sweetest Aussie Shepherd mix you ever met, from the guy my mom had given it to after she abandoned my older sister on the side of the road. This man did not treat the dog well, and the dog still gets scared before eating to this day. So while I was home alone, the man comes up the driveway and knocks on the door. I gave the 1 minute gesture and then grabbed the dog, literally had to carry her because she hates stairs and my janky flip phone, and locked myself in the upstairs bedroom to call my dad while freaking out and then calling the cops and getting mad at them because I was 13 and scared and alone. Edit for clarity. My mum once shouted my name when I was home alone. She was in another country. It was midnight. And I live in a 7-bedroomed house. Also, I once heard a scratching noise outside my house. Turned on the lights to see a rat had crawled up a window and was gnawing at the window frame at 10 p.m. Nothing too crazy but startling. 2 scenarios. Ant lady. So, my wife and I lived in apartment buildings owned by our university. We complained to get rid of our ant invasion. I'm a gamer and have some good noise cancelling headphones. This lady comes into our apartment. Probably announces herself IDK. I'm chilling playing games and I hear a noise in the bathroom. My wife shouldn't be home for a few hours. I almost end up clobbering that poor woman. / Police response to stabbing. That day was Friday. Game night. Just moved into our new apartment. So none of our friends know where we live currently. Wife goes out to hang out with friends. It's 12 a.m. I hear a knock on our door. It's a man's voice. Now this is weird for several reasons. No one knows where we live. And a man knocking at 12 a.m. Now, huge red flags. I tell him give me a minute. I go grab the biggest knife I could. As I open the door I hide the knife behind the thigh furthest from him. It's a police officer. And has responding to someone in the neighborhood who claimed they got stabbed. I'm literally holding a ducking knife. Lucky I hid the knife behind me. Chatted a bit and he left. Could have been bad. Why didn't the police officer say who he was? Like bro, everyone paranoid at night. After watching the first Doctor Who episode with weeping angels, I'm pretty sure I didn't sleep for 3 days. That one's horrifying. I woke up at 4 a.m. because of the screaming on TV. They were showing Twilight and Bella was giving birth. Truly terrifying experience. My dad dropped me off at home after bringing my sister to a party and I walked into a CD blaring super loud on our big old fashioned speakers. The CD was super hot when I took it out, so it had to have been playing for a long time. But I hadn't heard it going when we left. Turns out my sister had left the CD in, and then while we were gone there was a tiny power outage that made the music start again. Kinda silly. But all that was going through my head was, my favorite band is really gonna be the soundtrack to my death. Nice. I hate when there's a random noise in the house like a door slamming shut. And the unsettling feeling of not being alone when you've already checked if everyone's gone. I had a choking scare when I was like 11 and I was home alone and watching TV while eating Skittles. I like to put a bunch in my mouth and make like a Skittle ball that I would chew on. Something on the show I was watching made me laugh, and I swallowed the ball, and it got lodged in my throat. I then experienced a few seconds of sheer terror, because I realized that there was nobody here to help me at all, and I was probably gonna die. Then I remembered some cartoon or something where someone jammed their stomach on a chair and got something and stuck from their throat. So I lunged at the corner of the recliner as hard as I could with my stomach, and it actually worked and popped the small ball out. It was super lucky because I really had no idea what I was doing. But one of the worst feelings I have ever experienced. Definitely never ate Skittles that way again after that. I did the exact same thing. I was 12 or 13. Choked on a jawbreaker. Stuck in my throat and cold breath. At all. I was able to give myself the Heimlich. Or something close to it. By throwing myself against a stairs railing. Took 4 or 5 hits before I was able to dislodge it and spit it out. Took me years before I tried to eat another one. The 13th of November, 1981. I was 15 at the time. I was at home with the cat. They came home a couple of hours later to find me under dining room table with the cat and all the lights out. Father. Me. Father. Oh. There was a bomb in Wimbledon 6 miles away by the IRA. Me. Didn't you think to check I was okay? Father. Well. I was terrified. I'd been involved in bomb scares before but never experienced one going off, and if the house shook from a bomb 6 miles away it was big. I've only experienced something like that one other time, thank goodness, when the Buncy Field oil storage exploded in 2005. That was probably a worse explosion, because it happened 40 miles from my home, and yet it still shook the walls. It woke my husband with a start, who thought for a moment he was back in the army. And my father, asleep in his own home that night, slept through it. Was playing Sparks on my home theater setup. 100-inch projector screen. Surround sound. The whole shebang. Mind you, I had the headset on with the game audio, so I turned the volume of the surround sound receiver completely off. Just me. Big screen in the dark room. Was thunderstorming outside. Me playing some Cody. Next thing you know, everything goes black, power goes out. That's when I went pale. Well, when the power went out and reset, so did the surround sound receiver. Who would have known at reset it would turn it back on full blast white noise. Pitch black room. Surround sound white noise on full blast. Full blast. Crazy loud. I couldn't process what was happening. I thought I just got struck by lightning. I woke up on the couch after a night of not good sleep. I looked onto our counter and thought I saw my brother's decapitated head on the counter. I was terrified. But turns out it was a watermelon. Turns out. He's actually melon lord. You know those tongs in the kitchen that have a spring, but a latch to keep them together? I had a pair of those, and I put the latch on, and put them down on the counter. I went away for a bit and came back, and then they jumped off the counter at me. Biggest jump scare of my life. The latch had come undone, and they sprung open. But in the millisecond, when inanimate objects suddenly come to life and jump at you, you don't realize this, and totally freak out. Seeing a door open that you know 100% you closed. My ex-boyfriend showed up in front of my apartment and texted me he was there because he wanted to talk. I told him I wasn't home. Thankfully it was during the day, so I had no lights on, and he called me a liar. He stayed outside for nearly an hour until he gave up and drove off. I stayed in my bathroom the entire time while on the phone with my best friend. Looking back, I should have called the cops, but I was a scared 17-year-old. Somebody singing me a goodnight song while I'm alone. Help. The neighbor's dog being hit by a car because of the sudden sound of screeching tire. Bang. Loud yelp/scream. Then guy screaming "no" at the top of his lungs, followed by a chorus of screaming and crying. By the time I got to the window, they were carrying him away. It was really sad. And just hearing such a guttural scream of grief from someone in the middle of the night was terrifying in itself, and still haunts me. Poor family and dog. Not supernatural or anything, just a timely coincidence. Last October I found a Ouija board in Goodwill. Brought it home. A few days later I was home by myself and threw what the heck a mess around with it. So I sat down on the floor and am not even joking when I say this. As soon as I said, "Is there someone here?" the power went out. Like a week point later found out wind had knocked down a power line. Not gonna lie, I pissed my pants from fear. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more dank curated content from cross-pistable Reddit.